All right. Awesome. Okay. So hello, everybody. My name's Natalie, and I want to thank you for spending some of your time with me today. I know that Saturday weekend time is that's prime real estate. So thank you so much for being willing to spend some time with me today. I hope you get something valuable out of it. I am a veterinarian and a certified life coach, and specifically a positive intelligence coach. And today I hope that I will be able to give you a better idea of what that really means by shining a light on how we develop some of our self-sabotaging behavior patterns. All right, so I'm going to share my screen for a few minutes. And again, feel free if you have any questions, comments, observations, unmute yourself and sing out anytime you like. All right. Can everybody see the picture?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So let's back up. Okay. Okay, here we go. So positive intelligence is what we call a mental fitness program. And mental fitness means your ability to meet all of life's challenges and obstacles with a positive state of mind, or your ability to quickly recover back to a positive mindset after you deal with a big challenge or a setback. So in other words, mental fitness is really a measure of your resilience. So why is that important? Because your ability to stay positive or to recover your positivity quickly is really what determines how happy you are and how much you enjoy your life in general. It also affects the strength of your relationships, your health and your wellness, and your performance, and whether that's at work or doing anything else that's important to you. But sometimes life can feel really overwhelming and stressful, and that stress can cause us to behave in ways that we're not always proud of. But it wasn't always like that. Remember when life used to be a grand adventure and there were people around you who loved and protected you and provided for everything that you needed. You were busting with curiosity, enthusiasm, and just excited to be alive. It was so long ago, you probably don't remember it, but even if you had an unhappy or a traumatic childhood, when you were born, you were a beautiful, happy, unspoiled bundle of positivity. In fact, you were born with all the positive personality traits that you have as an adult. But then, little by little, life started teaching you some painful lessons. You learned what it meant to be scared, alone, ashamed, inadequate, embarrassed, or hurt. You learned that you weren't always safe, that mommy and daddy wouldn't always be there to protect you, and that other people weren't always nice or trustworthy. You began to understand that bad things could happen. And you learned that the world could be a big, scary, overwhelming place full of danger, physical danger, psychological danger, and emotional danger. So you started to recognize the need to protect yourself. You needed to figure out how to stay safe in this uncertain world, how to get more of the things that you wanted, like love, security, safety, connection, acceptance, and how to avoid the things that scared you, like losing the love and protection of your parents, feeling abandoned, rejected, ashamed, or embarrassed. These things were a direct threat to your physical and emotional well-being, but you were just a child. You didn't have any control over your environment or the people around you. So how did you stay safe? Well, you created a toolbox of behaviors that helped you to create that safety, to help you to get the things that you wanted and to avoid the things that you didn't want. You built these tools around the things that you were naturally good at. And like all behavior patterns, the ones that worked the best for you got repeated, and the ones that didn't work so well got dropped. Behaviors that get repeated often enough become habits, and habits that get repeated often enough become ingrained parts of our personal identity. Now, in times of stress or uncertainty, it is totally natural to turn to your strengths and to rely on what's always worked for you. That's kind of a no-brainer. But as the stresses got bigger with time, we started to overuse our natural gifts to the point that they began to come with consequences. But by then, the habits were already set. We just kept going back to what felt reliable and familiar. We only cared about staying safe and winning the moment. We kept repeating those old behaviors and ways of thinking, even if they were ultimately sabotaging us. Anyone who's ever tried to make themselves feel better with a pint of ice cream or a bag of chips knows exactly what I'm talking about. Functional MRI studies show that we humans have come up with 10 distinct thought and behavior patterns that we rely on to help us through those moments of stress or uncertainty. We use them to achieve success, love, acceptance, respect, and good results in life. And they actually are helpful to a certain point, but each one comes with a hefty price tag. That price tag is measured in stress, frustration, unhappiness, guilt or shame, or other hurtful emotions. They prevent the trust and closeness that we long for in our relationships. They make us procrastinate or say yes when we really want to say no. They leave us exhausted from running on an emotional treadmill that never gets us where we want to go. And they can cost us as much as 10 years of our lifespan. Now, every human has some of these patterns. We just don't all have the same ones at the same levels. The different ones that we have may show up at home versus work, or with our kids or our partner or our boss. Different people and different circumstances can trigger different patterns, but we all have some of these common elements. And just like the way that the most convincing lies always have that little grain of truth, the most destructive habits get you a little taste of what you want, but they never quite deliver the grand prize. They give you just enough breadcrumbs to convince you that if you tried a little harder or made fewer mistakes, that you'd finally be worthy of the success and happiness that you want. But they never deliver. And that's why we call them the saboteurs. So please allow me to introduce this cast of characters that live inside your head. I think you may recognize some of them. First one is the judge. Now, the judge is called the master saboteur because every single one of us has it. It's the voice that tells you that whatever's happening right now is good or bad. It tells you that other people are lazy, stupid, ignorant, incompetent, or that they are prettier, smarter, or more talented than you are. It whispers that you're not good enough, that everything you do is wrong, that you'll never be successful or loved in the way that you want to be. It's the voice that says you can never be happy until things change, or that person finally gets their act together, or you stop screwing up and start to do better. The judge tells you that it's helping you to get better results in life because it pushes you to try harder. But while it's pushing you, it's also eating away at your self-worth, poisoning your relationships, and sabotaging your happiness. And the judge recruits some of the other saboteurs to help do its dirty work, which is why we call them the accomplice saboteurs. I'm going to talk briefly about each one, but they all have one thing in common. They all try to tell you that they help you to get better results in life. They pretend to be your friend, but they're really stealing your happiness and stabbing you in the back. They are all equally toxic and destructive. So stay alert for these guys, because the most dangerous saboteur is the one you don't know is there. So first of the accomplices is the avoider. And as the name implies, the avoider handles difficult or unpleasant situations by procrastinating or pretending they don't exist in hopes that they will just go away. It tries to convince you that if you avoid and ignore things that are unpleasant or difficult or stressful, you'll be happier. Other people will be happier with you because, hey, you're always the fun one. And life in general will just be less stressful. But the truth is, we end up saying yes to things we don't really want for the sake of avoiding conflicts. Others don't trust us to be truthful when being honest is unpleasant, and they don't trust a procrastinator to handle anything really important. The relief of avoiding the unpleasant thing is temporary, while the real problem keeps lingering and festering, and we end up compounding the conflict that we're trying to avoid. Other people might even see us as having toxic positivity. And the second accomplice is the controller. The controller tries to tell us that if we work hard enough to control the people or circumstances around us, that we should be able to generate an outcome that'll be good for us. We'll have less stress when life and other people finally just cooperate with our plans. Other people will be relieved and grateful if we take charge. Besides, nothing ever gets done around here until we get involved. But the truth, In the real world, there are too many factors and too many variables to control them all. And the more we try, the more anxiety and the more stress we feel. We waste huge amounts of energy trying to control people and things that are just not controllable. And other people feel untrusted and manipulated by us. Our attempts to control actually trains them to not take initiative without our say-so, which puts that much more stress and more responsibility on us. The hyperachiever. This is my top saboteur. I'm not embarrassed to tell you. And this one, the hyperachiever's entire self-worth depends on constant high performance and achievement as a way to earn validation from ourselves and from others. The lie is that if we're always the best at everything we do, that we will win respect and admiration, will become indispensable at work and valued in our personal relationships. We'll be able to create security and happiness and have less stress. The truth is that other people see us as self-absorbed know-it-alls and perfectionists. They get tired of feeling inferior and they start to avoid us. Normal everyday obstacles and setbacks turn into threats to our core identity. This intensifies our stress. We turn into workaholics and we constantly chase after the next big achievement. And when we do succeed, we only allow ourselves the briefest moment of celebration, and then we're on to the next achievement. The hyper-rational. Now, the promise of the hyper-rational is I can avoid messy and unpleasant emotions by suppressing my feelings and relying on my rational and analytical abilities to create better outcomes. Emotions mean vulnerability and weakness. So by not feeling my emotions, I'll have less pain and less stress. But the truth is that other people see us as cold, robotic, or arrogant. Relationships without vulnerability are relationships without trust. And so we end up creating distance and shallowness in our most important relationships. And suppressing our emotions also means that we suppress our own happiness. If any of you are familiar with Brené Brown's work, she said it the best: when you suppress the dark, you also suppress the light. You can't selectively suppress only the bad emotions. So when you suppress your emotions, you suppress the good and the bad at the same time. The hypervigilant lives in the land of constant anxiety. It sees the problem in every opportunity. It tries to say, I can create more security for myself and for the people around me by trying to anticipate everything that could go wrong. So I don't take chances and I'll always be ready when disaster strikes. But the truth is that there are too many variables to predict or prepare for them all. And we cause ourselves constant stress by trying. The people around us, they're exhausted by our never-ending worry and anxiety. And eventually they start to avoid us when they realize that they can never reassure us enough to keep us calm. The pleaser. The pleaser tries to promise that we can earn love and acceptance by helping, rescuing, agreeing with, or doing favors for other people. Now, the truth is that we exhaust ourselves trying to please everyone around us, and then we feel resentful, burned out, or taken advantage of when they don't reciprocate. We don't have the time or the energy left to see to our own needs because everything we do is for other people. And other people may not even be aware of our needs, and they may just assume that we do things for them because we like it, not because we're looking for something in return. The pleaser also tries to avoid conflict, but unlike the avoider who does this to provide relief for itself, the pleaser does this out of a desire to make everyone else happy. But the end result is really the same. No one trusts a pleaser to make hard choices or to tell the truth if it might hurt someone's feelings. The restless. So the promise of the restless is I can maximize my own happiness by experiencing as many new things as possible so that I never miss out. The thing that I really need is always just around the next bend. And as long as I stay busy, I don't have to deal with my unpleasant feelings. And oh, by the way, I'm a world-class multitasker. But the truth is we can never focus on one thing, one job, or one relationship long enough to see it through and experience the full benefits. We leave a trail of half-finished projects in our wake. We cheat ourselves out of the full satisfaction of a completed job well done. And other people see us as having a short attention span, not to be trusted with important responsibilities. We may even feel unable to create a life or a relationship that feels safe and sustainable. Now, the stickler. The stickler tries to create perfection and organization to a level that is exhausting to the people who have to live with it, us, and off-putting to other people that have to live with us. It tries to say, I can earn respect and admiration and security by making sure that everything I do is to the highest standards. The truth, we resist doing things that we're not sure we can do perfectly, and we waste huge amounts of time and energy trying to make everything as perfect as possible. We resist new ways of doing things because we're convinced that our way is the right way. And other people don't appreciate feeling inferior, and they won't take initiative because whatever they do is never good enough for us. They know they can never please us, so they don't bother even trying. And last but not least is the victim. The victim's promise, my life will be so much easier if I can make other people feel sympathy for me. Other people will step in and help me if I show them how unfair my situation is. The victim is constantly complaining, overly emotional, highly dependent on the compassion of other people. Now, the reality, other people get tired of the constant complaining and they don't like feeling down when they're around us. So we end up driving people away, which just reinforces the victim's perception of unfairness and turns into a vicious spiral. We become dependent on other people to handle hard things for us, which prevents us from developing the skills and the confidence to take care of ourselves. The truth is that nobody is coming to the rescue. Other people's sympathy is a poor substitute for real love and personal connection. And self-pity is no substitute at all for unconditional self-love. So this is the cast of characters that's been following us around since childhood. Each one tries to convince you that it's useful, that it will make you do better or be more successful or get the love and security and happiness that you want so much. But each one really just ends up creating the opposite of what they promise. They hold us back from our own happiness. So here's what I want you to remember about your saboteurs. They are not all bad, and they are nothing to be ashamed of. Each one is a self-protection behavior that was created when you were a vulnerable child out of a need to keep yourself safe. And each one was born from one of your personal strengths. So, for example, the judge grew out of your ability to assess and evaluate the pros and cons of whatever's happening around you. The avoider grows from someone with a deep appreciation for peace and harmony. The controller is someone who's confident, decisive, and able to make tough decisions. A hyperachiever is someone who's determined, adaptable, and self-motivated. The hyperrational is perceptive and capable of great insight and mental focus. The hypervigilant is a great planner and very good at creating safety and stability for themselves and their families. The pleaser is a loving and giving person who possesses high emotional intelligence. The restless is curious, spontaneous, creative, and energetic. The stickler is organized and disciplined and values high standards. And even the victim is deeply self-aware, excellent at creating connection, and has a gift for teaching and inspiring others. So the goal is not to get rid of the saboteur. The goal is to just become aware of when a saboteur is at work so that you can use its underlying strengths in a way that serves you instead of sabotaging you. All right, so we've now come to the working part of this workshop. So what I would like to do is to have everybody pick the one saboteur that feels most relevant to you. The one that feels like it shows up the most often for you or that you think would be the most helpful one to work on. And by the way, I feel compelled to mention that the only person you can work on is yourself. So don't pick the saboteur that you think your partner has. Pick the one that you see most in yourself. In a second, I'm going to paste a document into the chat for you, and it's going to have a one-page generic description of each saboteur. And then there's going to be a page with some questions for you to answer. So just remember that not every characteristic listed for each saboteur may apply exactly to you. So just pick the one that sounds about 80% right. All right, so I'm going to stop my screen share. And I'm going to paste. So I'm going to paste this document into the chat. Everyone. Okay, give that a second to upload. And while we're waiting for that, would anyone like to share any comments, insights, observations, or questions? Go ahead and unmute yourself and yell it out.
I'm Susan.
Hi.
Hi. I have all of these.
So do
And
I.
I wish I'd been introduced to them many years ago.
I understand.
Pretty stunning.
But you know, the thing that I really, for myself and for you also, is keep in mind, don't focus on the negatives of the saboteurs. You definitely want to be aware of them, but focus on the gift that they came out of. Because I, like you, I have all 10 of these, and it was really easy for me to kind of go down a rabbit hole and feel like I'm a train wreck. I have all these saboteurs, something's wrong with me. But really, I find it helpful to really remember that each of these saboteurs came out of a very admirable and useful personal strength. And that's the part that you want to hang on to. Does that make sense?
Yes, I guess. I'll work on it.
It is such an ingrained habit for us to focus on the negatives, being down on ourselves and focusing on our shortcomings. It is a process to learn how to stop doing that. And I would be lying to you if I said I had that down pat. But after a year of really intensely working on it on a daily basis, I've seen a really significant shift in myself. So it is definitely possible, but it is work, and it's just practice, daily practice. You've practiced your entire life focusing on your flaws, so don't expect that to just evaporate overnight. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to say I was listening and like Susan, like feeling like, oh my God, which one to choose? They're all so relevant. But what was really funny is shortly before this video, I was working on some interview prep with someone, and when you started saying the positives of all those are exactly the types of things that you say in an interview, right? So it's interesting that you know, I guess as an interviewer, you might be able to identify your person's saboteur by what they state as their strengths, you know, and also
absolutely. If you
look better.
if you can identify what somebody's saboteur is, then you know what that innate personal strength is that it came from. And it kind of makes sense, you know, because if you have a personal strength that just comes naturally to you in times of stress or uncertainty, or you know, in an uncomfortable situation, it's the most natural thing in the world for us to go back to our strengths, the things that come easily. And we overuse those things until they start to come back and bite us in the ass, basically. Okay. All right, so in a couple of minutes, I'm going to put you guys into, or you can choose your own breakout room, and just pick, like I said, which saboteur feels most relevant for you. And here are the questions that I want you to answer for yourself. And these are the questions that you're going to be discussing in your groups. Number one, describe the behavior of your saboteur when it has control of you. So what does it make you do or say that you know, you may potentially come to regret later? But in the moment when it's got its hooks in you, what is the behavior that you attribute to that saboteur? Number two, how does this saboteur try to convince you that it's being helpful, that it's going to get you some of what you want? And this is what we call its justification lies. So what lies does it tell you to justify its existence, that it's being helpful? Number three, what triggers this saboteur to hijack you? What kind of things do people say or do? What happens around you that causes you to kind of fall into the saboteur mode? And number 4, what is the real life cost or impact of this saboteur? What does it cost you when it takes control of you? So once you guys get into your breakout rooms, elect one person that's going to be the reporter, and you're going to take 15 minutes and just kind of have a general discussion of the answers that you came up with to those 4 questions. And so basically, when we come back to the main group, your reporter is going to describe for the rest of the group, what is it like to live with this saboteur? And for those of us who maybe don't have that same one and don't know what it's like to have to live with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the breakout rooms. You guys can choose whichever one you feel is most resonant for you. All right, and again, you will have 15 minutes. Here we go. Okay, I hope everybody had some really fun conversations about their saboteurs. So I would love to hear what everybody came up with. So I'm going to call out each saboteur's name in alphabetical order, and whoever you elected to be the reporter from that group, please either raise your hand digitally or actually, and unmute yourself and let us know what you found. So just one side note, while the other groups are giving their reports, please try to listen with the intention of understanding what it's like for them to live this way. So remember, you may not have the saboteur that they're talking about, but it's a pretty safe bet that someone that you love or care about does. And so this could be a really good chance to learn something that might help you the next time you butt heads with that loved one that has that same saboteur. Let's try to take no more than 3 to 5 minutes per group so that we don't run over time. And with that, where are my avoiders?
I'm here, Yolanda. Okay, so yes, we are the avoiders, and we were 3 in my group. And it was interesting because even though we were only 3 people, there were like 2 different, let's see, extremes when it comes to avoiding. One was procrastination, because you think that your task is going to take you 10 minutes, but then it takes you hours. And the opposite was that you think it might take you a long time, you know, like a day, and you feel overwhelmed thinking, oh, it's going to take me so long. And then you avoid the task because it's going to take you that long, even though it might take you minutes. So that's why it was interesting that even though we were only 3 people, there were these different, you know, extremes, let's say. And then you justify it to yourself, thinking that, well, you know, it's okay. You can do it, you know, it's still, you'll do it at some point. So just kick it down the road, right? But that's causing us to be overwhelmed and stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And again, even though we are aware of it, we are causing this stress and this overwhelm, and we are bringing it to our lives. So that was really what we came up with.
Yeah, excellent. So so the impact of that saboteur is actually increase your stress, because the thing that you're avoiding just keeps piling up and festering and weighing on you.
And sometimes it's, again, just in our heads, like really we think it's going to take that long, but it isn't, and it could have been done in minutes, but just thinking about it is kind of consuming your time.
And your energy too. It's exhausting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the people in my group. They were very good. Discussion.
How about the controllers? Any controllers? No controllers.
I was a controller, but no one was there. I was a victim and no one was there. So I'm both. I feel like.
Have any comments about controller?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like initially it's like a good thing, but then it's a lot of work, and it's an anxiety for me. It's like an anxiety response. Like I just feel like no one's doing anything or nothing's getting done. I have to do it, and then that spirals into the victim. Like I'm the only one who's doing this, and so I have to take care of everything. So that's why I saw like a correlation between the two.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that's an excellent point, because one saboteur can absolutely trigger like a domino, the next one, and then the next one. Very astute observation about how it's an anxiety-based need to control, because you're trying to create that feeling of safety, or you are trying to create the outcome, whatever outcome for that situation that is going to benefit you. And just the reality is that there's just too many things to try to control them all. And that just compounds that stress and anxiety. So fantastic observation. Anyone else have any comments for controller? Live New York?
Yes, it's Lee. So I'm thinking, hearing Dahlia speak, it sounds like a hypervigilant, because she spoke about it being a safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they're pretty much intertwined.
They are really all of these saboteurs are about creating safety and about getting us the results in life that we want, getting love and acceptance from other people in some way. So they are all very much related. All of these saboteurs, even though they come from a personal strength that is a very valuable quality, they are all rooted in some sort of a fear that we're carrying around with us. So yeah, absolutely. Good observation. Any other controller comments? How about the hyperachievers? Am I the only hyperachiever?
I went to that group, but there was no one else there. So,
Oh, okay. Well,
so I became a part of the restless
okay.
group.
That's totally fair. Do you have any comments about hyperachiever as it pertains to you?
Well, I think, gosh, I'm looking back at the questions. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a way to feel like, regardless of what else is happening, like I'm accomplishing something. So that's probably why I'm in the restless category as well. But yeah, it feels like especially like in things that are in an academic context, I like that it's sort of like it's orderly. I know exactly what I have to do to like go from A to B. I know exactly what the next step is. I know exactly what what that's supposed to look like. Whereas in a lot of contexts in life, we don't really know how to judge that we've achieved what we're trying to achieve. And so
Yeah. Part of that is because no achievement is ever really enough for us to kind of allow ourselves to celebrate and to feel valued.
Right.
This is something for me. I can clearly see the roots of my hyperachiever all the way back to childhood, because I didn't get a lot of attention or affection from my parents. And so the only positive feedback I ever got from them was when I won an award at school or got good grades or did something good. And so I tried to do as much of that as possible. And that led right into my adult life. I became a workaholic, trying to constantly be the best person, the one that everybody relied on, and not realizing I was just digging a deeper hole for myself. That turned me into the person who never got to have a vacation or a full night's sleep, and just more and more draining and just destructive to my energy. Like I describe a whole 30-year period of my life as just a black hole, because it was just all eat, sleep, work, and I didn't actually live my life. And that I 100% attribute to my hyperachiever, that constant need, that compulsion to earn love, respect, acceptance, whatever it is that you want from other people, just feeling like you have to earn it and that you don't innately deserve it just because you are a human being.
Can I just say something? Because I was a pleaser, but like with the hyperachiever, in some ways, my people pleasing is my achievement. The fact that I'm very good at taking care of people. And I almost think we kind of touched on the gender kind of quality to it. I think it's probably less acceptable for a woman to say, oh, I'm a high achiever, than to say, oh, I'm a pleaser or a caregiver.
That may be
It's
true.
almost like the male equivalent.
I think there are a lot more male hyperachievers than there are female, but you've got a lot of high-powered female professionals these days, and it's catching up. So I think it just depends on what kind of community you're talking about. But yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, much heavier prevalence of pleaser for women than for men. Yeah, absolutely. All right. How about the hyper-rationals? No hyper-rationals? Okay. Hyper-vigilant?
I would say, I'm sorry, this is Naomi. I'm a little late to the group. Sorry
No
about that. I wasn't hypervigilant about looking at my calendar, obviously. But I would say the hypervigilance comes with the control factor as well, to stay on top of things. Because you feel like if things are out of control, it's like a house of cards, everything comes tumbling down. And it's also when you feel like other people in your family or your group aren't going to come through. So you sort of amp up things in a way, and it all is part of the same thing about control, obviously.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail right on the head. It's constant anxiety because you can never rely on other people to come through. You have to do everything yourself. You end up exhausted and burned out and resentful and frustrated with people around you.
Yeah, I think that really that's a roadmap right now for my life, actually,
You're
where
not alone.
the resentment factor turns into other things that are very negative, obviously.
100%.
And it's so hard to let go. And you really have to be so conscious of it when you do. Like,
Absolutely.
you have to be like, I'm just going to let things fall apart. And a lot of times they do. And that acceptance is hard because you're like, if I had done it, it would have been.
That is true. But also, how do other people learn new skills? How do they learn to take initiative?
Yeah.
They have to kind of be in a situation where they don't have a choice. When your toddler is learning to walk, you don't swoop in and scoop them up every time they wobble. You have to let them fall so that they can struggle and get up and try again.
Yeah. Sometimes that's hard with, young adults and children in
Yes.
your life, but, I've seen the results, and sometimes there's a mess up and a failure, and I've had to like really bite my tongue, and it's hard.
It is, yeah, but that's part of being a teacher and a parent. You can't always do the easy thing. The easy thing would be to swoop in and do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's much harder to stand back and let other people fall and let them recover from their own mistakes.
Yeah. I think that goes beyond even children. That can be just in general.
Yes, very much so. Excellent. Great job. How about
You guys basically summed up exactly what the hypervigilant group had said,
Yes.
even though Naomi wasn't part of the group. Yeah, it's mostly, it comes at, nurturers can be accused of being hypervigilant, which are parents, and teachers and people who have large responsibility go accustomed to taking on responsibility. And it's hard to let go. You're right.
Yeah, a lot of these saboteurs have very similar roots, and like I was saying earlier, they're all destructive in different ways. Some are sneakier than others, but they're all equally destructive. How about the pleasers? I'm sorry, did we already talk about pleaser?
We kind of did, you and I think it was integrated into a little bit of
Yeah. I was in that group, and there were 6 of us in there, and we all basically, kind of had the same type of thing where we just always were the ones who took care of everybody.
Yes.
And realizing kind of later in life that really didn't come out to our advantage. And when we're trying to learn to change that behavior, the people in our lives are not very happy about it.
Oh, of course
There's
not.
There's a lot of resistance, to us not wanting to, or thinking that we have our own needs met.
Yeah. And you can't entirely blame people when you've trained them for however
Mhm.
many years to expect this kind of service or behavior, and all of a sudden it stops. Of course they're going to be unhappy, but it in the long run, you're actually doing them a service, because they are then forced to be responsible for themselves, and that's going to serve them better in the long run than you constantly following them around and doing everything for them, as hard as it is for us to watch people struggle.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I was saying that, I just ended up, I burned out. I'm retiring early, much earlier than I thought I would, because I just can't do my job anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
A
and
very caregiving position.
absolutely. That's why boundaries are so important. And it's very hard for us to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I have to take care of myself, but it becomes a matter of survival at some point. Yeah, excellent. Okay. How about the restless? No restless?
I think we were too
Trying to
restless
unmute. Here we go. We
to
had three
appoint
people.
someone as
Yeah.
our speaker.
Yeah.
But
We
go
had
ahead.
3 people. And I took some notes because I'm, the achiever, one of these. Um, let's see. Someone mentioned how shame can come out of this restlessness, because we talked about having too many, irons in the fire, I guess is the old saying for it. All of us felt like we took too many things on, because we felt like life was too short, it must be lived fully, all of that. And we got positive feedback about that. We might be feeling stressed with the number of things we were doing, but people would, Sandra was in my group, and Sandra joined the Revel book club that I created. And because after 2 meetings of the Revel book club and my weekly mahjong group that I formed, and my painting classes and my yoga classes, I decided to drop the book club. And it was funny because Sandra was in that book club, so she witnessed that. But then Sandra tells me that she's in 3 book clubs. So it's interesting to have these things pointed out.
So what is the impact in your life of living with this restless saboteur?
Does somebody else want to comment from my group? We decided that that the restless person is also the avoider and the hyperachiever and the controller also. I'm sure other people realize that these overlap, but the consequences of this is being too busy. And it's almost like a drug addiction. You want to be multitasking, and what's interesting to me is I had a job that I described it as multitasking on steroids. I always had to do 20 things at one time, and I was good at it. But then I was diagnosed with diabetes, and there was another element I had to put into all those tasks, which was check my blood sugar, eat something. And that, I couldn't do it anymore, because that particular task took priority over all the others. If I was on a conference call, I had to get off that conference call and do something about my blood sugar. I think it was a life lesson for me.
Yeah. And so do you see a correlation between the impact of constantly having to multitask and you being diagnosed with diabetes?
Yes. my doctor said it was stress related.
Mm.
And for those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed at age 62, which and I'm also a type 1. A lot of people are being diagnosed as type 1 as adults recently, for whatever reason. But they think it's stress, they think it's you know, microwaves, air pollution, all those things. But at 61, I was put on insulin and an insulin pump.
Wow.
So that's a consequence that really sucks.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, looks like we have any sticklers. And last but not least, victim.
I'm your number one girl right here.
All
So
right, let's have it.
Essentially, as a victim, like, again, I see a lot of correlation between this characteristic and the others, because then I'm also a people pleaser, and then I'm controlling and whatnot. So as a victim, you know, I seek out approval, and but then at the same time, I'm like, oh, again, like, it's that same narrative of, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? Everyone's going to rely on me. I have to get it done. And then I spiral into, I don't know, like this like sea of despair because I'm not being recognized and no one's validating me. And then I like go back into this vicious cycle of constantly trying to seek out their approval, even going through the people pleasing route to earn it. And then I realized, like, as a cost to me, what have I gained? I have, like, you know, I'm feeling lonely or rejected or, you know, unvalidated. I don't have these great relationships because now I'm like just relying on them for validation, but not even for what you can get out of a relationship. And then instead of kind of stepping out and releasing myself of that, I live in it because, as you and I had said, like, the devil you know is the better than the devil you don't, right? And so then if this is all I know, I keep repeating the behavior in spite of not seeing positive results. So there's a lot of costs that come with it.
Yeah, I think you just summarized that way better than I could. Fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
just validated me. That makes me feel good. So thanks.
I validate you because I have to validate myself because I have a victim too. For sure. Excellent job, everybody. This was really some deep work that you just did. And I want to applaud everybody's courage, because it takes a lot of courage to you know, to look in at ourselves. And the truth is, most people go to their graves, they live their whole lives, they go to their graves never once questioning whether the way they think, the way they act, the way they live in the world, whether that is really the best way. So that takes courage that some people just never find. So I want to applaud everybody and thank you for having the courage to share that with the group. All right, so I want to give you just a quick overview of positive intelligence, which is actually what you all started working on today. So this is the first step: recognizing and calling out your most active saboteur. The focus of positive intelligence, or PQ, is to build up on that by teaching you to turn down the volume on the lies of your saboteurs and to purposely shift your mind to a more positive place where you can make better decisions, make better use of your strengths, and learn empathy for yourself and for other people, even the ones that trigger you. And again, a really important point to remember: what is actually happening when you feel repeatedly triggered by someone in your work or your family life. That is their saboteurs triggering your saboteurs. And when you react to that person from a saboteur mode yourself, you just end up amplifying each other's negativity, and it turns into a vicious spiral. I think all of us can probably remember experiences where that's exactly what happened. But empathy is the antidote to the saboteurs, all of them. And learning to have true empathy for yourself as a beautiful but imperfect human being, and learning empathy for the beautiful and imperfect being that other people are, that is a real game changer. And that is the major focus of positive intelligence. And your personal relationships, your work relationships, this is one of the 3 biggest areas that are most positively impacted by this program. So what I hope that I've started to show you today is that you could potentially be enjoying more success, more peace, and more happiness by learning some of these mental fitness skills. So positive intelligence, it's a research-backed and a program. It's based in neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, performance science, and positive psychology. And the MRI studies that I told you about before are real. I can send them to you if you are interested. And the results of this program have been validated by over 500,000 participants in 50 countries since the program started. So the program has 3 parts, and the work that you did today is the start of the first one: recognizing, intercepting, and redirecting your saboteur thoughts and habits. And remember, the saboteurs are survival patterns that develop in childhood, and every one of them grew out of one of your unique strengths in response to one of your fears. The survival brain is a helpful and a very necessary function, but there is another part of your brain that lives beneath all the noise and the chaos of your saboteurs. And that is your thriving brain, the part of you where love, creativity, innovation, curiosity, and all of your positive emotions come from. This is the person that you were when you came into this world before your saboteurs started to have their way with you. That's what we call the sage brain. And this is where you'll learn to rediscover and turn up the volume on that part of you. The sage has its own set of special gifts, and PQ teaches you how to grow each one so that it serves you so much better than your saboteurs ever could. Your saboteurs give you the breadcrumbs, but your sage can deliver the whole loaf of bread. The third part of this program is called self-command, because that is exactly what it teaches you. You will learn a specific mental focus exercise that actually creates new neural pathways in your brain that help you to shift away from your saboteur patterns and towards your sage. So you'll be able to enjoy all the success and the happiness and the fulfilling relationships that your saboteurs promise without the nasty price tag. Now, I'm sure that you've all experienced self-development programs that filled you full of exciting new ideas, but then fizzled out. That's because aha moments are not enough by themselves to create permanent change. You need consistent, practical application. And that's what makes positive intelligence different. The biggest benefits of this program come from the daily practice. We call it building your mental muscles, just like the way you go to the gym to build your physical muscles. You go to the PQ gym to build your mental muscles. And this is how you learn to control your mind so that it works for you instead of running away with you. So basically, in a nutshell, why should you care? Ultimately, it all comes down to what's in it for me, right? Maybe you feel like the way that you've been getting through life up until now has been working pretty well for you. So why do anything different? Well, if you can truly say that you are unconditionally happy all the time, then absolutely keep doing what you've been doing. But if you rate any of these areas of your life as less than a 10, then you can have something better and you deserve it. The people who complete the PQ program report significant improvement in all of these areas of their lives by the end of the 6-week core program. And that's because what you're doing is you're upgrading the basic functioning of the positive areas of your brain at the root level. And when you improve the fundamental way that your brain works, everything in your life gets better. So what do you have to do to see these kinds of results? Because there is work involved. Well, there are 6 weekly teaching modules, 1 hour each, and those release on Saturday mornings. And so you watch them at your convenience, at your own pace. There is 10 to 15 minutes of self-guided daily practice in the mental gym. So you'll get a variety of different mental focus exercises. Some are as short as 2 minutes long. Weekly group meetings with your positive intelligence coach, that's me, and up to 2 other pod mates to deepen your insights and to reinforce practical application. Sharing your story and hearing other people's stories can really magnify your results. It sparks your creativity. It leads to all kinds of new insights and new ideas. So for people that want more detail, the weekly progression of the program goes like this. Week 1, self-command. You learn all about how to do this exercise, how to start shifting your brain from Saboteur over to Sage. Week 2, we spend a whole week working on the judge Saboteur, learning to recognize the voice of your judge. Judge has 3 modes. It is the most pervasive Saboteur. We all have it. So we spend a whole week working on it. Week 3, you work on your top accomplice Saboteur. Week 4 is where we start to learn about the Sage perspective. The Sage perspective says that any outcome can be converted into some kind of gift or opportunity, even if it's not the outcome that we wanted. Week 5, we work on the first of the Sage powers, which is empathize. Empathy is the most important power of the Sage, and it's the one that we all struggle with the most, especially when it comes to empathy for ourselves. We can have empathy for other people all day long. We struggle when it comes to having empathy for ourselves. So this is the one power that we spend a full week working on. Then week 6, we work on the other 4 Sage powers. And then finally, there's a bonus module to take everything that you've learned in the previous 6 weeks, and we work on practical work and life applications. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about positive intelligence, I'm more than happy to answer all of your questions, but I don't want to violate any of Revel's hosting policies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Zoom meeting for anybody that would like to join me for Q&A. Or you can also contact me at my website or my email, which is up on the screen. I'm going to post it into the chat as well. Again, if anybody would like to watch this workshop again or to send it to somebody that you think would be interested, send me a message and I will share the recording. If you got what you came for today, then I thank you for the time that you spent with me. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. For anybody that has questions or wants more information, I'm going to paste the invite to the next Zoom meeting into the chat.
Okay.
So if anybody would like to follow me into that next meeting, please copy that information out of the chat. And Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
It was
It was
nice
great.
to meet everybody.